Welcome to Peekapod, where we inspire the youth to think beyond the obvious. Following the legacy of our previous podcast, today we have a very special guest with us, Ms. Resham Karamchandani. She's a founder to Potplant and she's a consultant. Welcome to the podcast, Resham.
Thanks, Ria. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we've been long waiting to plan this,
Yes.
but finally it's happening. Okay. So to give you a background about Resham, she started with her own sustainable clothing journey back at 24. She started it with the pot plant. So, Resham, my first question to you would be how this early, what made you inspire on that you could start and take that leap of faith so early on in life?
Um, See, I think it was more instinct than conviction. And also, I was 24, so I wasn't scared of anything. I was very excited about the opportunities that lay ahead of me. And this was a point. So I come from Agra, as compared to Delhi, a smaller city. And we grew up in a home where customized clothing was like the norm. And my dad used to travel a lot. So I've had loads and loads of textiles from all over India. And shifting to Delhi, there was a huge cultural shift, of course. And there was also a dearth of the kind of clothing that I liked. So this was more of an extension of my own self. I wanted to design for myself. So I was carefree and I wanted to do something fun, and it just happened. And luckily, Sanya Suri, she's the co-founder of the Pot Plant. She was my best friend in college, and one day we talked about it and she was up for it, and it just happened.
No, definitely. I think when I see the clothing that I have been to your store now, I think it reflects a lot of you and it reflects a lot of, generation that's upcoming, which, talks about being free spirit, which talks about being connected to your roots, but still do you. So how has that evolution worked out for you, or have you been like this since forever? Has your brand spoken about that since ever?
So I think it was just an extension of what we believed in and we ourselves like to wear. So see, 10 years back, like I'm going to turn 35 now. I started this when I was 24. That was a time when India was really opening up to retail giants. There were a lot of overseas brands that were coming in. So there was a whole cultural shift that was happening. So in the middle of that, I really wanted to stay connected to the childhood that I had known forever. And I'm also like my roots are from Sindh. So till now, you see that that culture is disappearing. So I just wanted to preserve that that beauty in something, be it adrak or bandage, whatever it was. So that is what happened. And I'm very glad to see that now that the generation is coming up, they're more excited about their roots in India. And you see that shift. They're more conscious about what they're wearing. Is it sustainable? Is it not sustainable? Where does it come from? Is it connected to India in some way? Or yes, they are giving it a spin of their own, but it's still, like Indian crafts is having a moment right now. It's looked upon as cool. It's looked upon as modern. And that has been our ethos since beginning. That was one of the reasons, I think, why we were chosen for Lakme Gen Next also. And then the entire Bandhani collaboration happened with Lakme Fashion Week. So, and we keep this ethos alive now also. It's been 10 years now. We're not the same people that we were, but the brand is evolving with us. So I feel like now it's about people who are in transit. Like, it's not A, it's not B. It's people who are in transit. Our clothes are like that. They evolve with you. So I think that's what it has always been about.
I think that's how you, in fact, grow, not just in business, but also in life. When you keep growing, when you keep on learning and adapting to the new cultures that are coming in, right?
Yeah.
So, therefore, a lot of people who are actually, so generally I was reading one of the studies and it said that the brand dies within 10 years. What I feel is if you don't evolve or the brand doesn't evolve in every 10 years, it definitely does die.
Yes. So there are two things that I would like to bring to this. One is that no matter what work you do, it's your business or your consultancy or a job, it can't be your identity. It is a part of you, but it's not who you are. And that I feel that sometimes, especially people who are not from metros, because, you know, they come up to metros with that one dream. So it
Yeah.
feels like, you know, this is it. There is nothing beyond it. Ye hai to hai, otherwise nahi hai. So I feel like that distinction you have to make. One, that you have to be independent of the work that you do. And when you do that, your brand will evolve automatically because you are growing as a person. And like for Pot Plant, when we started, cotton was not looked upon as cool. Even crafts were shifting to synthetic fabrics. Like you could see chikankari being done on georgettes and all of that. So I've seen all of that shift. And gender fluid clothing was not really that popular at that point in time. But now it has become a norm. So how do you deal with that? What more do you bring to the table? So which is why whatever we live, like I travel a lot, that inspires my clothing. I read a lot, that inspires my clothing. And this year I've really made an effort to know more about Sindhi culture, the kind of food we eat, the kind of embroideries there were. So all of that helps you rebrand, all of that helps you stay focused because you will be ultimately catering to the Gen Zs and the generations of tomorrow. So you have to think like them, you have to consume what they're consuming, and that should show in your brand eventually.
But that also brings to the point of artisans, right? Because what artisans are consuming, definitely you are designing them, right? But then there is a certain heritage which is linked, which actually gets in place when you meet these artisans, when you meet these people who have been doing what they're doing ever since ages. From their angle, do you think that they feel that it has been deployed way too much into the new modern technologies or the new modern age fashion that it gets disrupted somewhere or the original heritage which was there gets affected?
See, it's the same rule for them also, right? They need to evolve with the times. As much as you would want to preserve the same kind of clothing, clothes are not to be kept in museums. It's what you wear every day, right? So, and this used to be a problem, but I feel like they have enough exposure now. A lot of designers are working with artisans. You know, there's Rahul Mishra who's doing impeccable work. There's Sabyasachi. So they have taken the artisans along with them. And even the artisans through the Ministry of Textile and whatever the government is doing, they do get to do shows and trade fairs and all of that. So they understand that the market is evolving. So I think they have to adapt to the times. And I also feel like, there needs to be a mindset shift also. Whenever we think about craft or handloom, we come from a place of need. Oh, this takes so many hours, please buy it.
Yeah.
That is not the case. Like what you hold in your hand, nobody else will have that piece. It's unique. That is your strength. So you need to sell it like that.
But there comes a point, because there are a lot of, brands specifically, because they have such a marginalized and a huge manufacturing units, they can produce the kind of way they are producing, right? Versus when we come to the Indian artisans, they actually put in efforts for hours to publish that, right? So that kind of disparity in the clothing comes in, firstly in regards to money, secondly in regards to the kind of culture or kind of the efforts that are coming out. Obviously the efforts come on scene in the picture when someone wears them, but the kind of margin people generally feel upon is the budget as well, and there's a lot of gap there.
Yes, huge gap. So which is why when I talked about that mindset shift, that we need to stop selling it like please lay low. That shouldn't be your starting point. The second thing is fast fashion is a real issue. Like if you see in Europe now, there was a ruling that the companies will need to be responsible for their waste.
Yeah.
But that's not happening here because India, first of all, is a production company. So those things are there, those problems are in place. The only thing that you can do is educate people, right? And this is not just in clothing, this is with everything that we are consuming.
True.
Everything has become so fast tracked now, even the tech that we are consuming. So I feel like life will come full circle. You know, people have started seeing the effects of too much consumption or not the right kind of consumption. So ye fight will be there, but then that is, you know, it says how they say that progress is a double-edged sword. There's nothing that you can do about it. You can just try and find your audience.
Yeah. True. And I think India has audience for everything. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
There are people who appreciate clothing and overseas also. Like, people do look to India for their arts
Yeah.
and crafts. So it's difficult as compared to a fast fashion brand because obviously there's a huge difference in pricing. There is a huge difference in manufacturing cost. And it is much more difficult for slow fashion brands, but there is an audience there. So
Okay.
it's about community building. If you crack that,
Right.
then you can reach.
But I
there.
think community building happens during the period of time. You had that leverage of starting early, so you got that ballpark. Generally, as someone who's beginning out, what should be actually the focus area for building that community? Because you have built one for yourself, you've got accolades for that. How does one start building onto that community? Because everyone today, I feel, is running after valuation or probably running after sales. But that shouldn't be the case, right? That should come as a long-term picture.
See, the thing is that the market has shifted a lot. When we started, there was a set path to make a designer label. You know, you launched with a fashion week. There were buyers there, and there was an entire journey attached to it. But through D2C brands that we see now, especially post-COVID, it has become much easier to reach your audience. I understand that there is an entire noise also that's there on Instagram. The market is also saturated and all of that. But if you take your followers along for that journey, it's become much, much easier to reach them. And I think that's the advantage that brands of today have. So if they really look into it, if they try to build a connect with their audience through little things, like it's all about experience, right? That's why you see food coming in marketing. You see bigger brands. There's a lot around taste and senses and evoking nostalgia. So it's all about how can you help your audience find joy in what you are showing them. So thoda different sochna padega, but you have an audience now as compared to 10 years back.
Obviously. So I think it's all the way more easier to reach to your consumers now as well. But that also brings me to a very interesting point. You have, given clothing to OTT platforms. You've given clothing to some celebrities. How did that happen? How did that shape up for you?
So, honestly, for us, we were lucky. Lucky, I would say we worked hard.
Yeah, obviously.
Yes, but I feel like we did fashion weeks and the clothing. I'm very proud of the work that I do. Like, there are other brands also that I love, but I feel like a lot of brands did not crack Bandhani the way we did. So now, yes, there are more brands who are working with Tie and Dye and Bandage and all of that, but we were the very first few who really took it to contemporizing the motifs without really killing the craft. So I think that is what got us the eyeballs. People like wearing beautiful clothes, and that's how it happened. And thankfully, it was all organic. We're very proud of the fact every feature that we've had, every show that we've done, every celebrity spotting that we've had is because people did really want to wear those clothes. And the industry has been incredibly supportive of us.
Perfect. So, now coming back to, you mentioned that you were the first ones when it came to contemporarizing Bandhani. Now, people also talk about, a lot of brands are talking about sustainable fashion. They're talking about bringing in the cultures and the roots, right? But that direction and that conviction that, okay, people are going to like it. how does that come in? Because a lot of times I feel where people or founders get stuck is that, okay, I found my piece is brilliant, or I feel every designer feels that, okay, what I have created is something that's brilliant, right? But you are not very sure if the designer, of the person other than who you're selling to
Yeah.
will like that product.
Yeah.
How does that product market fit comes alive?
See, that is an ongoing issue with every brand house. No matter if you're 2 years old, 10 years old, or 50 years old, that is a market shift and a landscape shift that you'll keep experiencing through your work. The only, I would say the only solution to that is listen to your audience. With every collection that you're doing, there'll be pieces that are working a lot. So you sort of understand what kind of design is working for you. Take real-time feedback from your customers. They'll always tell you what is working for them, what is not working for them. And thoda sa you have to see where the trends are going, because you can't always swim against the tide. Sometimes you have to give the people what they want. So that is a fine balance that you have to understand. And like you rightly said a bit before, that you don't have to chase sales. As difficult as it is to do, and very disheartening also on a lot of days, like it's not easy to be an entrepreneur, but you can't just focus on sales. You need to focus on growing a community. You need to focus on taking them along for the journey and listening to them, what is working and what is not working, and then go all out on that.
Okay. And I think the next question that I'll come to is, because you've got such an accolade, so many awards, you've been recognized so many times, does that add a lot of additional pressure, or does that give a lot of validation? Where does that come in, and where does that fit in for you?
I think both. Like, it was incredibly validation, yes, heartwarming, overwhelming. All of that was definitely there. Like I was 26 when we won Gen Next, and then we went on to do a lot of collaborations with all the fashion weeks that happen in India. Were at the biggest multi-designer stores, celebrity spottings and all of that. So you get that validation, but it also adds pressure, because then you tend to fall into that cycle of, I need to make a new collection. I need to make a new collection. So for me personally, now it's really about the stories that I tell. Clothing is a part of the pot plant, and that'll be the base. But I feel like we will now explore more stories of India, more states of India, what other crafts that we can do. And I think that is what keeps you fresh. And I think that is what will keep my soul satiated.
So, in case someone's entering the fashion industry, what is that one advice you like to give? Because generally people tend to think that fashion is only, about designing, or fashion is only about what consumer is liking. But it's at the back end, I see there's a lot of tech which is involved. I see a lot of business mindset which is involved at the end of the day. From, sourcing the right material, to getting it in the right technology, to fitting it in the right design, to making the distribution channel so solid that it reaches to the consumer that you're aiming at. So how does that work out, or what's your advice for the youngsters?
So I'd say the exact same things when I was, so this is something that a design graduate had told me when I was thinking of doing fashion design as my graduation. They said that, in a year, you just have 4 weeks where you feel glamorous, because that's what the fashion weeks are about. Every other day is about the hustle that nobody sees. Design, fortunately or unfortunately, tends to become the smaller part of your operation. If you're running a business, you have to look into everything else. There are orders to be taken care of. So for the first few years, I made the website myself. We used to handle the orders ourselves. We used to handle packaging ourselves. Everything was taken care of by us, by the two of us. And that is true, I think, today also. And I would say this also, if you come from a place where you can invest right away in your business, please go ahead and do that. It'll help you. But if you can't, do not lose heart. keep at it.
Mm.
But design will eventually be like 20-30% of what you do. You have to learn how to do business. You have to understand whatever tech is being involved. Like, especially now with AI, the landscape is evolving so much. Like we used to sketch before. You can now just see it on GPT or a different app of how it will look like in real time. So use that to your advantage. Learn the new skills that are out there and just keep at it.
Yeah. And how important do you think is a co-founder in this? Because since you have had the co-founder and lucky enough you found the perfect fit, I feel.
Yeah.
So how has that worked out, and how do you find, or that right click of an co-founder is very important, I feel.
Yeah. So, see, for me, I've been asked this question a lot, and for us, it was very organic because both of us were very young and stupid, I believe, but also rebellious, and we wanted to do something. So it fit. It works both ways because people grow over time. So you have to understand that there are conversations that you always need to come back to, because no two people grow in the same way. Like, I'm not the person that I was 10 years ago, neither is Sanya. So I think that conversation, coming back to the same point of why you started this, why do you want to go ahead with this, is very important. So whoever you are getting into business, make sure that you trust them. Not just with the business, but also your personal life, because that's how close you'll have to be to understand each other and to fall back on each other if some things go wrong. So that is very important. Conversations are very important.
Okay, and I think divert a little from business and come to your personal life also, because I feel that's a very important part to get the right kind of support, right? You started off at early 24. Today you are sustaining it at the age of 34. The kind of support that you need at 24 to start that business also have a lot of support and a lot of edge to hold on to. So how was that for you, and how have you been sustaining them? Because I mean, not in your case, but generally people start getting the pressure after 30 that you need to get married, right?
Yeah.
You need to start having, probably people say that you need to have a family, although you yourself are a family too. But people start to tend to say those things. So how do you sustain all those things and actually build on that business that gives you, the fire, the ambition to say that, okay, no, I have a fucking business and I can run that, and that's what my job is, and that's what my part of family is.
Financial independence is very important for me, has been very important for me since day one. I come from privilege, but I chose to do this on my own. So did Sanya. So there were struggles. We used to work, we used to freelance also to fund the business and all of that. So there were challenges. There were challenges for me also, for getting married and this and that. But I would like to give the credit to my parents. They have evolved with me. They have understood me over time, or tried to understand what I'm trying to tell them. So that kind of support is important, yes. But you need to have that fire in your belly. If you think that this is what you need to do in life, then you go ahead and do it and you don't worry about it. अगर आप थोड़ा सा भी ये सोचते हो ना, what do I have to fall back on, then that is when your decisions will be affected by what other people want out of you. So I'm not saying don't quit. If something is not working out for you, go ahead and don't do it. But have that conviction that if not this, then this is what I want to do with my life. Which is why I said that your identity is independent of the business or the job that you do. But it's your fire in the belly about what kind of life you want. And have that kind of social circle around you. Like, for a long time, obviously, I've had friends from college, friends from school. They've had a different path in life. They got married, they had kids. What do you do after that? Your life is not the same as them. That is when you make new friends. You try to find your tribe. And that is where I was lucky that I got people who are like me. Married, not married, child-free, things like that. So I think that is very important. You need to find your tribe. You need to keep evolving with the time. And you need to know for yourself that this is what I want to do. And come what may, I know I will be okay. And then your family will understand. 90% of the time, they do understand. It's difficult, but it can happen.
So, like you mentioned, that the right support is very important, and you've been privileged enough to get that support, right? A lot of time, people don't actually get that support, the right kind of support. Eventually, I feel we have been privileged enough that the parents come around, the family comes around to support you. But I don't think that's the case for everyone,
No,
right?
it's not.
So, someone who's how important is financial? I feel once you get financially independent, the world comes around you, right? What is your take on that financial independence? How do you see financial independence particularly?
See, I will just speak for myself because I come from much better circumstances, both in terms of finances and in terms of the kind of family that I have and the school of thought that they come from. So for me, it was about that I should be able to take care of my expenses, invest a little here and there, and traveling was big for me. Actually, that is what financial independence was for me for a really long time. I just wanted enough money to be able to book a trip whenever I wanted to book it. So, but yeah, now as I grow older, it has evolved into things like travel is definitely there, but taking care of my dogs, I have 3 dogs, so that's definitely there, and just having a little something saved for the future.
Right. So, generally, when people are coming from small towns specifically, uh, other people, I'm not very sure if you get the similar kind of opportunities, or is there a backlash there as well when people are coming from a smaller town? I want to know a little on that perspective.
Um,
Do you think
like,
the
do they face some?
Yeah, I mean, do you think the opportunities get scrutinized a little when you're coming from certain
Definitely.
background?
See, definitely. And again, I can just speak to myself. I come from a ICSE background, fairly well spoken. English was big for us. So thanks to my mom for that, for putting me into that school. So things were still easier for me. Delhi was not that big of a deal for me. There were other things that were difficult. I was moving away from home and all of that. And I still got judged a little bit. Eventually, it all faded away because I've always been a type A student, type A personality, great student, great at studies and all of that. So people realized that this is not somebody who would just sit down and take it. But it happens, yeah, it definitely happens in the way people dress, in the way people talk, especially for smaller towns. It's difficult for them to really find opportunities in metros. They do find opportunities, but there is that difference there. That is the harsh reality that is there. So sometimes you get good people, sometimes you don't get
Definitely
people who are that receptive. So.
Okay. And let's talk a little about your travel. I see that always puts on a happiness on the two of us. So, when we're traveling, and specifically, I feel a lot of doors open for you. Your personality opens a lot when you travel. You start interacting with different mindsets and different people, different cultures. How is it for you, and how important do you think travel is for you? Let's talk about the importance first.
For me, it's very important. I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but I have always enjoyed taking trips. My parents also love it. And then I realized that I really love seeing different countries. So very, very important for me. I always have a trip planned in my mind. So yeah, definitely important. I like seeing new cultures. Design wise also, I really love to see what other architecture is out there, what are the boutiques that are out there, what else are people doing. So that ways I love it. And generally also, travel for girls, especially brown girls, I feel is very important because we live a very sheltered life, right? No matter how privileged we are or what city we live in, we're still slightly sheltered, as I would say somebody from Europe or things like that. So I feel like just that confidence of boarding a train or a flight without somebody holding on like without you holding on to
Yeah.
somebody else, is a very different experience. It changes you as a person. बहुत छोटा सा feeling होता है. You feel like if I can do this, I can do everything else.
True.
So I think people should travel, and now there are many different avenues. Like you travel solo in packs. So a lot of services
Yeah.
have come up like that. Traveling is very important. It shows you how small your world is, how insignificant everything is at the end of the day, and what more you can learn out of your experiences. So definitely. And it's not about going overseas or, you know, like a big trip or anything like that. Just from one city to another in your own country. Very different experience. I think everybody should do it. You also get to understand what you like to do, what you like as a person. What do I like to spend time with? Do I like mountains or do I like beaches?
Yeah.
Because Indians tend to travel in packs a lot. Indians tend to travel in families a lot. I feel like everybody should have experiences where they go out on their own. You get to meet yourself.
Yeah. So, yeah. True. I agree with that.
I'm glad.
So much so. But I'll move on to my next question, right? You said you have 3 dogs. I know that you do a lot and lot for animal shelter, for, just growing up these little babies. So how does that come in of you managing so much? I feel I'll rather talk about because you have so many roles going on, and like you mentioned that work is a part of life. At the end of the day, we have to come back home, have those 3 babies around my arm, and that's what life feels about, right? How does that balancing comes in for you?
See, I'm not the only one who's doing it. So Sanya is a huge support. Had it not been for her, it would have been much more difficult for me. And there are limitations to what you can do or what you can't do if you have fur babies or kids at home. I hope I don't get cancelled for it. But there are certain limitations in place. But I would choose any other life than this. Like, it's also unconditional love. Dogs love you like nobody else can. So I am very grateful that I get to have them as my babies. I make sure that I sit with them, I play with them. There are days when I'm unable to spend as much time as I want with them, but I'm working towards it.
So, we discussed a lot about fashion designing. We talked about work-life balance, but you're also into consultancy, right? And like again, you mentioned that kind of support is needed when you're doing your own business,
Yeah.
when you are. Firstly, okay, I'll break it into 2 questions. Why you still doing it? Firstly, does it still give you that kick? Is it only from the financial point of view that you think that needs to be done? What is the main agenda, the main reason you're still continuing to do?
I don't really have a reason right now. I like working a lot. I like writing a lot. I've always liked writing since I was a kid. Even my mom used to tell me कि और कुछ नहीं तो ये तो तुम कर ही लोगी. So it was that. So it helps me process a lot of what is happening in my life. It's very cathartic for me. And also, like I said, that my work is a part of my life. It's not my identity. At the end of the day, fashion is fashion, right? There is just that much that you can do in it. But I also want to do other creative things. Like, I've handled digital marketing for some incredibly amazing music festivals. I worked with some interior brands. I worked with some tech brands. And now also I am writing, and I'm heading digitals and content. So it satiates my soul. And it also keeps my ear on the ground. Like, I get to know what else is happening. Otherwise, I won't know what is happening in logistics, what is happening in healthcare, or what is happening in auto tech and all of that. So I like that knowledge. I like creating brand stories. I would want my story, I would want my life to be bigger than one brand, is I think why I do it.
Okay. That brings me to the second question, because you're working in 2 very different and very parallel worlds. One being the content writing, which itself is a very heavy working.
Yeah.
And then managing your own business, that's like a 24/7 job. How do you think, you are able to fit in both of them and yet give the effective output that is required? So, because I feel a lot of people generally get stuck in that loop of, procrastinating a lot. And specifically because we have ADHD, I mean, I think at times get in that loop
Yeah.
stuck, right? Where we're not able to finish what you started. So how do you generally see to that working out?
So I think structure helps. This is where structure helps. Being neurospicy has its own advantages also, I would say. So I'm not saying that it's easy. It's difficult because sometimes I tend to burn myself out. Like I feel very burnt out sometimes because I work a lot. But at the end of the day, I choose this life because I like it. I like writing. I like every new client that I deal with. It's nice to create those stories. But I would say that take help. That is very important. Like I make sure that I take therapy. I make sure that help is available because you need to also stop yourself from doing 20 things and just concentrate on these 2 things which are there in front of you, because just type ki main hu, mujhe sab karna hai. I want to do everything. So, and I can't do everything, obviously. You just have that much time with you. So but that understanding is also coming with age. Like I have that kind of tribe around me. I have that kind of friends around me. It's a more grounded life. I still work a lot and I like working a lot, but I try to settle myself and choose my projects now. I decide how much time will I give to what thing. How do I break out of the loop of overthinking? Obviously, dogs also help a lot because they don't care what is going on in your life and they need that attention from you, which is a good thing because you always come home to that love that you have. So it's not easy. Sometimes it gets a lot, but I like this life. I try to compartmentalize it into what all I want to do. I make sure I cook sometimes. I used to cook a lot before, but now I can't because I'm working a lot. But I do make sure that I cook. I do make sure that I travel. I do make sure that I meet my friends. So all of these little pockets of joy is what keeps you going.
You also talked a lot about finding your tribe. And I remember you once, like when we were talking, you said that making friends in 30s is a little more difficult when you're making friends in 20s. How do you firstly find that tribe, and specifically changing? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of your friends must be getting married and you won't be able to relate to them, right?
Yeah.
So how do you firstly find that right kind of tribe for you? Secondly, how do you maintain those because a lot of people, get hassled up in their own life. They say that, okay, yaar, people in their 20s start avoiding their friends saying ki nahi yaar, main busy hu, sorry, I don't have time. So how do you make that certain kind of time? How do you start prioritizing your friends?
See, it's decision based at the end of the day and intent based, right? Like I was mentioning before also, that the friends I grew up with are in different phases of their lives now. It's not that we're not friends anymore. It's just that the life is different. So, and of course, finding friends in your 30s is difficult, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because you are not in a corporate circle where you will have like 20 colleagues that you interact with or anything like that. So it was very difficult for me. But again, I would say that life has been kind to me and I got lucky because there's this one, I mean, I don't know if I can call her an influencer or not, but Adarvarya, I don't know if you've heard about her or not. So during COVID, right after COVID, she decided she would connect people. Okay. And she just asked if, this is Delhi, this is the moderator, would people like to sign up for this group? And that's how I got to meet the friends that I have today. But it was also an active decision on my part. Like now, there are a lot of experiences that are happening. There are running clubs that go
Mm.
on. There are book reading clubs that happen. There are coffee raves that are happening. A lot of sub threads on Reddit and all of that
Yeah.
also. So it is difficult. I remember Bumble also tried to do this. Bumble BFF. They tried to
Okay.
connect people for friendship, but then it
Mm.
faded out. So you will have to make that effort.
Mm.
You will have to understand that life evolves and it's okay. Your friends might have different priorities
Mm.
now, but you need to find the people that fit into your life.
Mm.
And it is an effort. You have to make plans. You have to show up. There has to be intent there because you're not kids anymore. You're not hanging out at the
Mm.
same places. You're not
Yeah.
going to the same college. So you have to make friends. You have to make that effort.
Mm.
For me, I have to take time away from dogs, travel, work, and all of that. And it has nothing to do with being single or being child free. So for married people also, I would say that uh, you can't make that one person your everything. You
True.
need to have your own circle, right? You need to have time for yourself. So it's just intent. If you make that effort, I hope it'll happen for you also.
Yeah. So now we move on to our next fun segment, which is called the rapid fire. Okay. Firstly, travel or books? Which one will you choose for life?
Travel.
Okay. Minimalist or maximist?
Maximalist.
Maximalist. Vintage or modern?
Vintage.
Vintage. Trends follow or sometimes let it go?
I let it go.
Okay. And okay, first fashion memory.
My dad coming home from Lucknow and my mom and three of her sisters sitting around him as he gifted everybody chicken curry. So, and that is how I understood that, okay, this is what I like. And all through the 90s, yeah, like, as rapid fire, I know, but like
Yeah.
Madhuri's iconic costumes and then there was Sri Devi, so loved it.
Okay. One client you want to style.
I'd love to work with Tabu. I love her.
Hope she sees this.
Yeah, I hope she sees Tabu. I love you. Although she's worn our clothes, but I've
Yeah.
never met her. I love you.
Okay. And okay, favorite travel destination. We'll end on that.
Egypt. I loved Egypt. Like that was a dream come true.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. And
Thank
hope
you.
you liked
having
it.
me. I loved it. And congratulations on the podcast.
Thank you so much.